if you're sitting at home and you're daydreaming about it, and
Right.
this is something that you are constantly thinking about, then it's something that I feel like you got to do for yourself. You have to do in your heart. Just go do it and figure it out. And, the rest will sort of fall into place.
Are you an RV person? Or are you just RV life curious, wondering how people live in a tiny space with their family 24/7? Either way, this is a podcast for you. My name is Kate White, and I travel full-time with my family and 2 kids and the dog in an RV. Every week, I sit down with a fellow RV woman to learn why she chose RV life and how she has changed on the road. Pull a chair up to the fire and let's chat. Hello, my friends and fellow RV queens. This is Kate White, your host, coming at you from Northern Michigan again. Today on the podcast, we have Nicole Johnson. And I have to tell you, this woman is a saint for bearing with me because I had a cold and was sniffling like the whole time we were recording. I'm like muting myself to blow my nose. Oh my gosh. First of all, thank you, Nicole, for not running away. During the interview today. But seriously, this woman is like multi-talented. Like, she's a travel nurse. She's a photographer. Her and her husband built out the schoolie they've been living in for a year. Like, literally, they bought this bus from a school, and stripped it down and rebuilt everything. It's so beautiful. And now they're building out a van to have on the side so they can take weekend trips and stuff like that. We get into a lot of details about everyday life, and she shares, a morning routine and how they plan out the day with the kids and some of her surprising most favorite places that they've stayed over the past year as she's been a travel nurse. She is an inspiring, organized, go get 'em type of woman. And I really love this conversation. And you know what? I think you will too. Let's get into it. Hello, Nicole, and welcome to the RV Queens podcast. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's totally my pleasure. Where are you these days? What part of the world?
Well, right now, actually, coincidentally, we're on our way to Glacier National Park and then on to Banff and Jasper in Canada. So that's why you'll see us in our van right now. But we are stationed. So I work as a travel nurse. We're stationed in Wyoming right now until the end of October.
Oh, baby. Is it getting cold up there?
It is. It is getting cold.
Yeah.
It was snowing actually 2 hours from us or 3 hours from us in Colorado. So it's getting cold.
We're in northern Michigan right now, up by, Petoskey, which is almost getting into the UP. It's 40s at night and in the morning. And I'm like, I need to start heading south. This is getting really chilly up here. So
Yes.
You have one of the coolest schoolies I've ever seen. First of all, good job. That thing is amazing. And you guys started your bus conversion back in 2020, which, we all know that means you were planning for it and looking for a bus, months before that. So will you start by telling us the story of why you chose to build out a schoolie and live in it?
Yeah. So actually funny, we didn't spend a whole lot of time thinking about it.
Oh, nice.
So as I told you, I work as a nurse. Yeah, I work as an emergency room nurse. And in 2020, we all know everything that was going on in 2020. And Bo and I just really decided we needed a change. And we didn't really know what that change looked like. So we had been looking through Instagram, perusing social media. And I came across this account that was a schoolie, and I looked at Bo and I just said, we can do that. We can do this, right? And he was like, you want to build a bus? And I said, yeah, let's build a bus. And then literally a week later, we bought a bus and started building it out.
Wow.
Yeah.
were you guys handy? Like when you said we can do this, is that like characteristic?
Yeah.
Were you a DIYer and stuff before that?
Me, not so much. We laugh that I learned a lot during this process, and Bo had to teach me a lot during this process. But Bo is very handy. He did a lot of woodworking side projects. He did a lot of like home upkeep for us, and he worked construction, so he had that skill set, that base. So I felt confident that he could get us through it.
And had you guys RV'd before all this, or was it really just the appeal of like building out your own space and figuring out how to travel?
We were trying to figure out how we could travel, but how we could also work. So for us, we didn't have jobs on the road. We didn't, my skill set is nursing, and I knew that we could take that on the road. So we really just wanted to figure out how we could do that. And then some travel nurses that I had worked with RV, and I was like, well, that makes sense. We could kind of do that. And truth be told, it's a lot cheaper than finding an apartment or a rent every single place that we go. So it felt like the best of everything, that we could travel, we could have our home. But to speak to your question, did we RV? No, but we have taken vacations like in a van, or we've rented like small RVs and taken vacations in them, but never like long term.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Are you saying you had taken a van, like, like a class B, like lived in a van for a while, or vacation in one?
What was it? Oh my gosh. Probably 5 years ago now, I think. Bo and I rented a van. We flew to Vegas, rented a van, and then we drove through Utah and did like the big 5. We thought back on that so fondly. And even when we were in the van, it's funny, we would say, we could do this with kids. We could definitely do this with kids. And we've always come back to that it was like our most favorite adventure together. It was just everything we wanted it to be. So we come back to that a lot. So yeah, we were about 2 weeks, I think, in the van together.
Oh, I love that. That's like a little background story before you had kids, before you even thought about doing this full time. It kind of like planted a subconscious seed in both of you. So there's a lot of people online, like in forums and social media and all this stuff, like asking questions about schoolies and schoolie life, in particular.
Yeah.
I would say, like, what questions do you wish people would ask you on like bus builds versus van builds? Like, I'm sure you get a lot of the same questions when it comes down to like really doing the work and making this happen. What do you wish people would ask you more?
I wish people cared more about like how it works day to day. So I think a lot of people get hung up on the allure of how it looks, right? So bus life looks amazing. RV life looks amazing, but nobody asks about the challenges that we face kind of living in our bus. So it took a lot of adjusting when we first moved into the bus. And sort of, I wish people would ask more about what those challenges look like and how we overcome those. I think that if you jump into it and you don't have, I guess we jumped into it too and didn't really know. So we would love to pass that knowledge along. Like, we're used to living in an 1,800 to 2,000 square foot home. And now we're living in 250 square feet of space, and how that looks for us and how we manage to maintain privacy, or how we manage to maintain who we are separate from each other as well.
Yeah. How have you managed those things? Like privacy, first of all. Especially in a bus where it's just like, it's one long space and like maybe a bathroom, maybe a bedroom, what are your tips there?
Honestly, I think it starts with your layout. So for us, we saw a lot of schoolies that had a just basic down, like it was just on either side, just like a lane almost, so you could see the whole bus.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, that wasn't going to work. We knew we needed to have separation of maybe like our rooms, so to speak. And so we did an S-shaped layout to make sure that we had separation from the back rooms to the kitchen. And then we built a door. So we have a door separating our primary bedroom to the rest of the rooms and to our kids' rooms. And so that's sort of how we built our bus. And then from there, I think it just is understanding and reevaluating how each person lives in a small space. So for me, I require a lot more downtime and a lot more me time than Bo does. And so we know that we've sort of sectioned off our home that I can go out back into the room and we have it set up so I can work or I can watch TV or something like that, and vice versa if Bo needs to do that. And then we built the kids like a little play area so they don't have to be in the living room with us or in the kitchen with us if we're making dinner. So I think those little things help a lot.
Is that kind of what you meant when you said, like you mentioned, you wish people asked how you kind of retain your individual selves while you're together all the time? Is that kind of what you meant?
Yeah. So I guess that's like the build part of it, where we have to like figure out how we're each going to live in this space. And then also like we've had to relearn. So it's just me and Bo and it's just our kids. And so we have to be intentional about making sure we take time for ourselves and intentional about making sure that we each do what fills our cups. So for Bo, like he loves to go running, and Bo is very social. So when we're around people, we make sure that we each have our time to be with our friends or to go out running or to go on a hike that we've really wanted to go on. So we're very much more intentional about being in tune with what each other needs now versus when we lived in our home.
That's fascinating because, you know, if you do end up settling back in a house someday, those are lessons that you'll carry with you, you know, even after this. You guys hit the road in 2022 and you've been, you know, taking travel nurse assignments, which means you have kind of a slower pace of travel, right? Those are what, like 3 months assignment usually?
Yeah, anywhere from 8 to 13 weeks. But we have extended we've loved every place that we've been, and we've extended. So we've stayed in most places for probably 5 to 6 months at a time.
Wow. Okay. So where all have you guys been so far?
So while we were building the bus, I worked as a travel nurse in Massachusetts, which, if you're familiar with like the New England area, Maine is about 3 hours from where I worked in Massachusetts. So while we were building out the bus, I did an assignment in Massachusetts. And then from there, we left and went to Nevada and worked in Las Vegas for about 6 months. From there, we went to Wisconsin and worked in a small water town, Wisconsin. And then we left and went to Phoenix, Arizona. And then from there, we then went to Wyoming. And we've stayed 6 months and 26 weeks, I guess, in each location. It's been amazing.
Yeah, I love the slower travel. And so to me, that sounds perfect. So you guys are from Maine. You're used to just like beauty up there. There's part of me like wonders if you like when you travel to some of these places, you get there and you're like, I mean, Maine's better. For example, Wisconsin, you know, like.
I knew you were going to say that. So it's really funny you say that. So I had a really hard time when we first got to Wisconsin. My mom will even laugh about it. I'll say, this is not going to work out. We will stay here for 13 weeks, but we are done after this. Even my friends now, who they'll be like, hey, remember how much you hated Wisconsin? And then when you were leaving, how much you didn't want to leave? It's funny and interesting. Wisconsin was one of the most beautiful places we've been. We just had to go and find the beauty in it. So the state parks in Wisconsin were some of the most beautiful places that we went and swam, we hiked. Like the Apostle Islands are around there in Wisconsin, or up towards that way. And it's just, yeah, once we figured it out, once we reached out to people and said, hey, where should we go? What should we be doing? They pointed us in the right direction, and I look back on my time there very fondly.
That is so surprising. I'm from the Midwest, so I tend to think Midwestern places are kind of like not as pretty as like the coast. So that's probably some of my bias coming through too. So I'm glad you found the beauty of Wisconsin.
We did, but I miss the ocean. I definitely miss that we can go hiking in the mountains one day, or all in the same day. We could go hike and then go to the ocean. So Maine definitely has my heart, but Wisconsin's beautiful. Your
kids are pretty young, so I don't know if you've gotten in depth on like a homeschool approach or not, but where are your guys' minds at as far as schooling and staying on the road?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. We're always learning, adapting, growing. This past school year was the first year that we've had to sort of even think about a curriculum. So my son is 6. He'll be 7 in December. And then my daughter is 3. We were given some suggestions. We tried Abeka. And I like it for consistency, for sort of like a first time curriculum. We enjoyed that. But I think our approach after doing this first year is more of a, gosh, I don't really know, like an unschooling, road schooling, world schooling kind of blend. I really like the idea of we're in a new place all the time. And so like when we're near the ocean, it's fun to do ocean themed things and teach our kids about the ocean. And then when we were in the desert, like in Phoenix, we spent a lot of time teaching them all about the desert and that ecosystem. And now we're in Wyoming and we're teaching them like animal safety and all of these things surrounding camping and backpacking. And so I've found that throughout the summer, my son has done a lot better with that sort of approach than he did with a very almost regimented, stricter approach. And so I think that's where we're heading now, and we'll see how that works. And we'll just continue to adapt and change as the kids adapt and grow and change.
And I've heard it described from smarter homeschool moms than myself. They call that like unit studies, I think, where you have, it's like you take a topic and like everyone's kind of learning about it all together. And it kind of like pulls in, it's kind of like multidisciplinary, like you can learn about the history of, the place, of people living in the desert in Arizona, and the animals and the weather patterns and all that. Yeah, I love that too. And I've heard that from a lot of RV parents. That's kind of the approach of like, when you're in a place, like pull what you can to teach on the road. It's pretty cool.
And it's so hard too, because we do a lot. So we're moving around constantly. And then we also have a lot of friends from the community. So we have a lot of RV friends, a lot of schoolie friends. And we don't want to be so regimented that when they're in town, we're like, no, he has to be here. He has to be doing this. And so we found that this approach this summer has been really nice, because we also can meet up with other people and kind of learn with them as well and see what they're doing and get the kids together and they're learning together.
Yeah, totally. So how have you found that community on the road? Is it through, groups you've joined online, or is it just kind of like more organically meeting people? Tell me about that.
A little bit of both. I think so. People are constantly like, oh, how do your kids socialize? How do you guys socialize? How do you find community? And that's a huge concern for people. We get a lot of comments or even messages from families who are like, we really are heavily looking into this lifestyle, but I'm really concerned my kid's really social. And if anybody is listening, watching, and they know my 6-year-old, they know how social he is. And I would say that we are intentional about meeting people online and then meeting up. And then also we've met people very organically. So we've stayed at several very family friendly campgrounds. And because we're there so long, we meet up with their seasonal families as well. And so that's sort of how we've created our community while we've been on the road.
Yeah, and I know there's like schoolie specific meetups and stuff like that. But like I guess your way of, your travel nurse assignments kind of pull you to one place. I don't know if that's realistic, but I just mentioned it for people, that might be watching that do have those questions. There's all kinds of, you can like get into any, subcategory of RV-ness that you want to. There's like Airstream meetups and people who do like, what is that called? Overlanding? I don't know, where you take your Jeeps out and stuff like that. What else? Oh yeah, like the meetups where you can, whatever brand of RV you have, they have, like we have a Keystone, there's like a Keystone rally, all that kind of stuff. Full-time families groups. Yeah, there's lots of different ways. Okay, so you are clearly a multi-talented woman. Obviously, like you're a nurse, we've talked about that, but you're also a photographer. You DIY all this stuff with your husband and have like really good taste, by the way. You're a content creator, you're building out a van, which we'll talk more about. For someone like you who needs more downtime, like what does your daily life look like? For example, like let's start with a morning routine. Like what does this look like for you in a small space with your family?
Yes. So lucky for us, I'm more of a morning person and Bo is more of a night person. So it works out. Usually I will get up earlier. I like to have some time to myself, whether it's to go to the gym or wake up and just get into the day slowly before the kids wake up. And so I'll wake up, I will either go to the gym and then come back, and usually the kids are awake. We'll have breakfast and then we'll plan our day together, trying to figure out what it is we want to do. So sometimes we're planners. So we try to plan out like our month and what that's going to look like. So is today a build day and a downtime for the kids, or are we going out adventuring? What does that look like for us? And then we'll go and do that for the day. And then, so the morning time is usually my time. To just get myself together. And then the nighttime is more of Bo's time to have his space and to do kind of his thing if we need it.
And then like, if you're a planner, are you also kind of like a routine person? Like, do you have like little rituals in the evening and stuff? Or is it just kind of like, dude, I don't know, put on Netflix, doesn't matter?
I think I would like to think that I'm not as routine as I am. But no, I'm a planner. We're pretty routined. We like to kind of know in advance what our day is going to sort of look like, but we will adapt. So, like, for instance, there have been multiple times that we're like, hey, we should go for this hike with the kids. And the kids wake up and you can just tell it's not going to be a good hiking day. And so we'll sort of scrap that plan and reevaluate. And maybe that we switch it up, and maybe like Tuesday's our down day. And then Wednesday is out adventuring, going hiking if the kids are up for it. So I like to have a plan, but we will adapt pretty readily to those plans and change.
Not to mention like weather. It's like, dang it. We were planning to go to the beach last Saturday. And like I told you, like we're in northern Michigan right now. Sometimes it's like 75 to 80 and it's the month of September, right? So sometimes it's awesome and sometimes it's like 40 degrees. And so we were like, yeah, we're going to have a family day at the beach, in Harbor Springs. Oh my gosh, it was, but it's like every day to me, it's the same. I have the same feeling. I wake up and I'm like, I like to know like roughly the schedule of what's going to happen, but I mean, we'll see.
Or if something really cool pops up, I'm not opposed to scrapping my plans and doing that. So yeah, you got to be adaptable in this lifestyle.
Hey, guess what? This is a sponsored episode, and it's time for a short ad break. I love spending time outside with my kids, especially when we're traveling in the RV. Recently, we had a blast trying out some of Elikai Outdoors' amazing outdoor games. Their games are inspired by nature and are incredibly durable, which means you can create lasting memories with your loved ones. And the best part? They're carrying cases. They're compact enough to take on the road with you. Be sure to check them out at elikai.com/RVQueens and use the code RVQueens10 to enjoy a discount of 10% off your order. Do you feel like your kids have adapted pretty well to living in the bus?
I think that this has taught our kids to definitely adapt to their surroundings, and find something fun and new in each location. But I'm not gonna lie, at first it was tough. So when we set out, so my son is 6 now, like 6.5, he'll be 7 in December. And when we first set out, I thought our first 2 assignments, he had a hard time adjusting. I think he got a little more emotional when we would move to a new place, because our first assignment was in Vegas and we spent 6 months there. So he sort of had time to adapt. He made friends. And then we moved and went to Wisconsin, and we spent 6 months there, and he loved it there. We were at an amazing campground. And he just loved it. And so when we moved there, I can see as he's getting older, and then now he loves to move. He'll be like, hey, where are we going next? And so he's adapted. He's realized that this is sort of our lifestyle and what we're doing, and he likes it. And he will help us plan a little bit too, within reason. I'll say, hey, we have a new assignment coming up. These are the places we're thinking. Here's what we can do in each place. What are your thoughts? Where would you like to go? And sort of pose it to him so he feels like he has a say in, and he's a part of our decision making in this lifestyle.
I love that. Does it
as much as a 6-year-old can be.
Yeah. I'm not very familiar with travel nursing and stuff. Like, is there such demand for travel nurses right now that you kind of get to choose? Like, you apply and you pretty much just get to go where you want? Or is it kind of like you apply to multiple and see what happens? Or how does that work?
Yeah, well, so when we first started traveling, when I first started travel nursing in 2020, my goodness, I would put my application in and hear back same day. There was such high demand, but we all know what was going on in 2020, 2021. Yeah. This past year, it's been a little more difficult. I don't feel as confident, and that's why I'll throw out like 4 or 5 places that we could maybe go. And I don't feel as confident about maybe getting callbacks for all of the assignments. I might get callbacks for 3 out of 4 of them, or sometimes even 2 out of 4 of them, but it's slowed down quite a bit. I don't know if any other travel nurses will agree with me, but I feel like it's slowed down for us.
Yeah, I think I have talked to, this was several months ago, but she had a really specific skill set, though. I think it was like pediatric, like neonatal, like itty bitty, newborns and stuff like that. And she was saying that there wasn't quite as much demand as there used to be. But I mean, I think it's amazing that just the idea of travel nursing and being able to make good money, I have a cousin that she's new. She graduated maybe 2 years ago, and she went right into travel nursing. So she's a young 20-something. She's been able to live, like, she's been in the Pacific Northwest. She just finished time. Luckily, it was before the crazy stuff happened in Hawaii. But she had an assignment in Hawaii, in California. And, she's like me. She's from the Midwest. So I'm like, get it, girl. You can get out there and see the world and make that money. It's good stuff.
I taught online for 2 colleges. I did some nursing, like, classes or whatever. And I would always tell them, I'm like, get your experience underway, and then so many doors are going to open for you in this field. You can travel, you can stay stationary, you can like have any sort of like you can work peds or you can work emergency room, you can work with the elder. It doesn't, there's so many avenues to nursing. So good for her. That's exciting.
My husband was actually a pediatric RN for like the first almost 10 years of our marriage. And it's tough when like it was a really great career when before we had kids. I don't know why I'm going into this. It's just sharing. After we had kids, it became really emotional for him to work like in peds because he was also on the cancer unit at the time, like around when we had our babies. And he was like, I don't think I can do this anymore. Cause you just start like seeing you see these kids as if they're your own, and he would just get really attached. And it's oh man, it takes a special type to be a nurse. So God bless. Okay. Something I want to touch on is you've talked a lot about Bo already, and I love it. And even in your content, like you guys seem like you really love each other. Like I can see it in your writing, and you like have all these like huggy moments. I don't know if that's intentional or not. I think it's awesome. I've never said this to a guest on the podcast yet. Like you just like seem so cute and in love. So can you tell us like what's your story there? Is it intentional that you're showing off that side of, marriage on the road? And also like, how did you guys meet? What's your story?
Gosh, so many questions there. All right. So I'll start with how we met. So I was working as a nurse in Maine, and Bo loves to travel, if you can even believe that. So he was traveling to Maine, and he was just on like a road trip. He had just broken like his clavicle, or he had broken a bone or something. So he was just he took his savings and he was coming to Maine, and he was doing like this big road trip. And we met just randomly, very organically out at a bar one night. And we actually, not many people can say this, but I still have the picture from the first night we met. I was out with like a bunch of girlfriends, and we were trying to take a selfie. So you know how girls are when they're trying to like take a selfie. And he came and he just asked if we needed him to take the picture. And he's kind of a jokester, so he like got in the picture as like a selfie. And so that's sort of how we met. And we just started talking, and we just really hit it off, and we've been pretty inseparable ever since.
So is it like intentional that you like spin in that side of your family story to your content, or does it just kind of like naturally come out when you're recording?
Like to think like when I look at the videos and stuff, it feels very natural. It feels like we do a lot of dancing together. That is sort of some of the things that we will do when the kids go down to bed, or that's sort of just our relationship. And I like to show it because it's part of who we are. So I think it's like a little glimpse into who we are as a couple and who we are as a family. And so I like documenting that. I like seeing it. I like looking back on it. So part of it, I think, is selfish for me, because I like that we have those videos.
Oh, that's awesome. I was hoping you would say that. It just like warms my heart. Okay, so something I like to ask guests is to think back on yourself, like before you chose to RV, or before you chose to live in a bus, and so Nicole before bus life and Nicole now that you guys have been doing this for over a year, and what's changed
with our lifestyle. It feels like I'm finally living the life that I had envisioned, that I thought we would be having. Me personally, I feel like this lifestyle has brought a lot of growth because I am very go, 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 go all the time. And this has taught me to slow down a little bit more.
Yeah, me too. I feel that same way. Like, just calm down. Just like go take a hike, okay? I'm also like a real like go, go, go person. It's until I started living in an RV and living in the woods most of the time. I would love to chat about van build if you have a few more minutes. tell us what's going on with the fact, okay, you guys built out a schoolie and you've lived on the road for a year, and now like you're also building out a van in the meantime. Tell us what's going on there.
I think people think we're super crazy until they hear me tell why. So we live in a bus. So we've talked about this, right? Like we live in a bus. We stay in one place for like most of the time, like almost 6 months. And so when we first went out to Nevada, I work 3 days a week. So, because your husband worked as a nurse, like we work 3 days a week, and that's like full time. And so I had 4 days a week that we were out adventuring. And so what would happen is we would leave on like my first day off. We'd come back on that 4th day, and then I'd go back to work, and then we'd leave again. And so we were putting a lot of mileage on the bus. We would pick up our whole home, take it on an adventure, come back to our primary location. And it was making me really nervous because we're in a decommissioned bus. We already set aside quite a bit for like maintenance or mechanical issues. And so for me, it made sense if we were going to have a second vehicle, why not make that second vehicle, it looks sort of like a multi-purpose vehicle. And so now we use the van as my car to get to and from work, and then also use it when we're going on adventure. So like we're going to Glacier, we'll take the van instead of the bus. And then when we go into Banff and Jasper, we'll take the van instead of the bus. So it just made sense for us and our lifestyle to then get a van and DIY it. And plus, we like to DIY, as you can tell. So this sort of scratched that itch to then get back into DIYing another vehicle.
Well, it's funny because I just interviewed Aleha Briles, and they're doing the same thing. They built out I guess they didn't build out as much as you guys did, but they renovated a Class A, and they have 2 young kids and stuff similar to you. And now they are building out their own van. And they're going to go travel in Europe with it.
I didn't know
but I love that.
Doing.
It's like, yeah, didn't hear it. I mean, I don't know. She told me on a podcast, so I figured it's public.
I knew it. I've been admiring their bill or their Class A. Is that what you guys call it? Yeah. I have been admiring. I even messaged them. I was like, I want your rig so bad. I love it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, amazing. They have like tricked that thing out for sure. But I love that it's kind of like you got the confidence and the like, we can do this from the first big rig. And then you're like, yeah, of course we can just build out a van. Our second vehicle, of course we can. So good. And having a husband that's like really into construction and handy, that's helpful too, I'm assuming.
Yes, it is very helpful.
Yeah, my husband is not that way, and there's a little bit of me that's jealous, and I can say that because he's not going to listen to this podcast.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I love that.
So for listeners that are sitting on the, like, maybe there's a listener that's like more RV life curious, and they're, living in a house and they're a nurse and they're kind of like daydreaming about this kind of stuff like you were a few years ago. What would you tell them?
Oh my goodness. That's a great question. I feel like it sounds so cliche to say this, but I it's just truly how I feel. I think that you just need to do it. You just need to go for it. And this is what I say all the time. And this is, Bo and I had to come to the realization, we had to face the fact that we could do this and we could fail. And that's a possibility because you could do that, or you could do it and you might not like it. But what's the worst thing from trying it? So if you try it and it doesn't work out, then you sort of pivot and you figure out what is going to work for you. But if you're sitting at home and you're daydreaming about it, and this is something that you are constantly thinking about, then it's something that I feel like you got to do for yourself. You have to do in your heart. Just go do it and figure it out. And, the rest will sort of fall into place.
You will figure out the how along the way. There's so many RV people that have that story. It's like, yeah, we didn't know what we were doing. We'll figure it out.
And you can sort of spend as much or as little as you want. I mean, we've seen beautifully built out buses for like 60, 70, 80K or more. And then we've seen incredible buses built out for 10,000. You know what I mean? So you don't have, I think people get hung up on the fact that they're like, oh, we don't have X, Y, or Z to do this. And it's like, well, figure out what you need, what you want, and then go from there. And you don't need to have like an 80K bus to go and live this adventure.
I love your perspective. And it's like so similar to like every other woman I've heard on the podcast. It's like, just get out there and do it. You'll figure it out. That's what we're all doing out here. Nobody's got all the answers. Yeah. Okay. So one more question, and then I'll have you tell everyone where they can connect with you online, Nicole. So the podcast for this show, oops, that's not what I meant. I just messed up my own question. So the slogan for this show is a podcast about unexpected riches. So I would love to hear, what is the unexpected richness that you have found from RV life?
Family time. And I think, so the unexpected for me is how much I love teaching my children and homeschooling them. I was not expecting how much I would really, truly enjoy that. And so I would say that that's probably maybe the unexpected part of it. I knew I would like it. I knew I would love being around my kids. I mean, I do, but I really enjoy teaching them. I love watching the world through their eyes and seeing sort of those aha moments when they actually like get something that we've been teaching them. And so that for me has been, aside from all the beautiful places we've been, that probably is the memories that I'll hold on to the most.
I love that so much. And especially when you look, I mean, kids grow up so fast. You're going to look back at pictures and be like, what? It was 6 months ago and they were doing that. Yeah.
Because even 6 months ago, we were laughing because we were looking at a picture of my youngest. She's 3. And when we first came into Wyoming, she had like no hair. She's like 3. She had like little hair. And now she's got this full head of hair and she's so tall. And I'm like, who is this girl? Who is this little girl? This isn't the same girl we came to Wyoming with. So yeah, they do grow up fast.
I love it so much. My daughter was the same way. She didn't have hair forever. But of course, my son was born with hair all over the place. So it's funny how that happens. Okay, Nicole, will you share with our listeners where they can connect with you online?
Yeah, we're on Instagram and TikTok. We're at Roam with Bus, so you can find us there. And we'd love to have you a part of our adventures.
Thank you so much for being on the show today. And hopefully I will see you on the road soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the RV Queens podcast. If you would like to be on a guest on the show, click on the link in the show notes to the guest application. And if you would also please go ahead and subscribe to the channel and like the video, that would help us out a lot. Thanks a lot, and I will see you on the road. I just messed up my own question.